All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tom Sanders, Director of Sales and Marketing for KMT Waterjet. Today, we're pleased and very happy to be talking to a familiar face, Rodie Woodard, President of Maximum Industries out of Irving, Texas, just outside of Dallas. He's no stranger to KMT. He started his career in waterjet technology over 30 years ago right here in Baxter Springs, Kansas. At the time, it was Ingersoll Rand, now it's KMT. So, Rodie, welcome to our virtual webinar, and we're glad to have you today.
Well, thanks a lot, Tom. You invited me to be a part of this webinar.
Can you tell us some of the things that are unique to Maximum Industries that sets you apart in the world of waterjet cutting and any kind of fabrication?
Well, we like to think of ourselves as a model for a company. We try to do things right, or we don't do it at all. We are an AS 9100 company, and that's not just for quality procedures, but it's also on how we manage the business, how we treat our employees and our customers. And so, when people call us, they're wanting to solve a problem. And so we know if we just have one water jet sitting there, that's the only way we're going to be able to solve that problem is cut it with a water jet. Where now, since we have mills and lasers from part marking lasers to a 10,000 watt fiber that cuts very thick steel, to etching lasers to engrave and do etching on precision etching on parts, and 7 water jets, including 2 5-axis that people send parts to us from East Coast and West Coast all the way to Dallas because of our capability. There's some things that we want to solve everything in the big picture and not just cut a half-inch part out of a piece of aluminum. So we're solving a lot of problems because of the multiple technologies under one roof. And so we feel that kind of separates us from the other guys out there.
So as the president and owner of Maximum Industries, you buy a lot of equipment, whether it be a laser or a water jet or a press brake or whatever it may be. What is your criteria that goes into that decision-making process?
One of the most important things is we're in this thing to make money, so you want to align yourself with a piece of equipment that's going to give you the best advantage, really, from a technology standpoint, because technology is a great equalizer. As long as you have as good a technology or better, you're going to be able to compete in the marketplace. And so as long as we have that, we feel we're going to win our share of the business. But more importantly, I feel it's important to align yourself with the company that's going to keep you on that leading edge of the technology. So, I've done that with you guys, with KMT. I've mentioned it to you in conversation before that you guys have really helped me stay on the forefront of the technology with the 50,000 PSI, 60, 90,000 PSI now, and not only the pump, but also the cutting head technology. So I've appreciated that. And I've done that same thing with my laser supplier, in that we started off with 1,500 watt CO2 lasers, 3,000 watt, 5,000 watt CO2 lasers. And now we've just getting ready to exchange a 6,000 watt fiber that we've been running for a few years for a 10,000 watt fiber laser, which is going to keep us on that leading edge in that technology. So we feel from a technology standpoint, both water jet and laser being a non-traditional, non-contact cutting process, we think we're going to stay on the leading edge of our offering to the market.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get into the KMT side of it? That expanded from 1 to 2, now up to 7. Seems pretty amazing. You have 7 water jets. So give us a little bit of history there.
Yeah, I went to Detroit to kind of learn the automotive business and how they do business. And one of the 2 main things that I think I learned there was they always had good preventative maintenance programs. And then they also were very cognizant that time is money. Every minute of the day is of value. And so in selling equipment into that industry and then trying to take what I've learned in the Maximum Industries is they would use header systems in many applications, so that if any single pump that was feeding a couple of robotic cells went idle for some reason, they were able to push a button, close a valve, and you were online again with another pump. Well, I've done the same thing here. We have a header system around our cutting cells, and we have a bank of intensifiers where we can push a button and turn a valve, and we're back operational. In addition to that, the preventative maintenance program that we learned from the automotive business has kept us very aligned. We've grown the business systematically, but we've always tried to duplicate our capabilities. We decided to move into the 5-axis water jet world, and we not only put one 5-axis gantry in, but we added a second gantry, because we're all about service and being able to provide an on-time delivery goal. And to do that in the water jet world, you do it with duplication.
Yeah, for sure. How important is having that standardization in your shop? Does that help your staff? Is it something that you take advantage of from standardization?
Oh, we certainly do that. As I've mentioned, we've kind of standardized on the suppliers, the companies we work with on these different technologies, but we've also standardized on the type of equipment that we acquire from those companies. So the answer is yes. That duplication helps with training our operators, both from an operation standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint, and then being able to take advantage of a service call from one of those suppliers' tech teams when they come in. They're looking at one piece of equipment but that maybe there's an issue with. We can also use that same visit, that same service call dollar, to also look at another piece of equipment that may need some type of maintenance.
So I think our listeners might be interested in the types of industries that you align yourself with. I've had conversations with you before, but you definitely align with industries where you can bring a value-added element to the table. So what are some of the industries that you find yourself gravitating to out there?
Well, one of the advantages of water jet cutting is the no heat cutting process, no heat affected zone. So aerospace, working with materials like titanium, Hastelloy, Inconel, things like that. The water jet world can gravitate you to the aerospace world, defense, oil and gas, medical, heavy industrial. Those are the markets that we try to attack.
Yeah, that's very good, and I think it's important that our listeners understand that there's more to it than just equipment. So, like your qualifications and your certifications that your shop has. Can you tell us a few of those?
Yeah, we're an ISO shop and an AS9100 Rev D. So those are the latest quality certifications that open up a lot of doors. Both in the larger companies, they want a solid quality program, and if you're going to talk and do business with pretty much any aerospace or defense contractor, an AS9100 is a program that they require. And it's not just a maintenance program or a quality program. We use it to run the operation, all the way from our quoting process, our vendor qualification basis, but we use that to run the whole facility, the whole company.
Yeah, I remember over the years, I was in your first facility and now your new facility. You've been there for many years, but I remember back in '08, you started going down the path of the 90,000 PSI. Previously, it was 60,000 PSI. And then in '08, I think it was, you got into the Pro Series, the 90,000 PSI. So when you jump to the 90K Pro 90,000 PSI over the last, say, 10 or 12 years, you now have, I think, 4 or 5 of those intensifiers in your facility. Tell us how that's impacted your business.
Well, we've evaluated cost per inch of cutting, and we've said internal to our facility, any place where we can reduce the cost per cutting inch, it makes us more competitive. 2/3 of your operating costs has something to do with the abrasive jet in abrasive jet cutting. So if we can get an inch, say you're cutting 1-inch thick aluminum, and you can reduce that cost over 1 inch of aluminum, you've just made yourself more competitive in the marketplace, or you can take those dollars to the bottom line. So it's been a situation where it's proven return on investment for us. It's tough to do that in a job shop environment as far as just calculating the exact return on investment, but from a competitive standpoint, it's all there.
So on the 90,000 PSI versus the 60,000 PSI, any particular applications or materials that you found are advantageous with the higher pressure?
Well, one of the things that is, you really didn't know it when we were first looking at 90,000 over 60,000, but the velocity that you get with your jet as you increase that pressure actually pierces material faster. And when you have laminated material, whether it's laminated rubber and fabric or laminated composites, it actually pierces in many materials fast enough to keep from delamination occurring. So we have customers that have water jets of their own, but they are working with laminated material, and because of our 90,000 PSI capability in a piercing situation, if they have a lot of holes maybe in their parts, we're able to go in and do those applications for them, even though they have their own water jets.
On the 90,000 PSI, when you look at that versus the 60,000 PSI, I know we talked about the abrasive, and that's 2/3 of the operating costs. But just speed itself, what does the faster cutting? I think we talk about 50% faster typically. Some materials is 30% faster. Some materials it's maybe 60% faster. How does faster relate to your business? How does that help you? If you're trying to move faster, is that a throughput benefit? How does that help your business?
Yeah, exactly. If you're cutting faster, you've got overhead of the facility that's costing you the same whether that machine is sitting idle or cutting. So if you can amortize, if you can get more parts through the machine in the same amount of time, that return on investment is critical. It's key for you, and the faster cutting speeds is. And what we're finding is 30 to 40% on a everyday in and out basis. Yeah. On some materials, you can get a bigger return, up close to 50%. But in general, 30 to 40%, you can be guaranteed of that.
Yeah, that's exciting. So your 10-hour day gets down to maybe 6 hours, 7 hours. You compress the capability and capacity of your shop. So that's got to be exciting. You have a lot of pumps. We know that. I've seen the pumps. I've sold you many of the pumps, so we appreciate that. But then you gotta worry about servicing the equipment.
Yeah, in the early days when we just had a few pumps, we would maintain those pumps ourselves. But in general, we've opted to evaluate and move forward with a preventative maintenance program that KMT is offering us, where they have, or you guys have, service technicians stationed strategically positioned around the country. And we're fortunate enough to have one nearby that it makes sense for us to bring in a highly qualified service technician that can do things quickly to get you up and running again if it's an emergency situation. But the technology these has made it to a point where the mean time between failures is fairly predictable. So we have set up a maintenance schedule with KMT where we can bring in a tech for one trip and do scheduled maintenance on multiple pumps at a time that we can rotate through, where our downtime is pretty zero these days where it comes to a pump issue. So it's been a big advantage to us because of having 7 pumps. We can do this maintenance on a scheduled basis versus a reactionary basis, and it's given us more hours a day for cutting.
Yeah, some of our listeners may be new to Waterjet, so I think it's important that we address a couple of things. As you know, Roddy, we offer 60,000, 90,000. We have pumps from 15 horsepower up to 200 horsepower, but we also offer a direct drive pump. It's a 30 horsepower pump, and we have a lot of customers that do utilize the direct drive technology. Can you talk in terms of the direct drive versus the intensifier style, how the intensifier style serves your business maybe differently than maybe a direct drive would?
Yeah, I've looked at direct drive pumps through the years, and always have gone back to an intensifier style pump. A direct drive pump is very efficient when you're using one size nozzle all day long, and that's what you need. Well, in a job shop environment where you're running 2 hours on one project, 2 hours on another, and then another, you need to have the versatility and the flexibility to be able to change from a 7,000th orifice to a 10,000th orifice, and know that your pump's going to pressure compensate and only pull the horsepower required to run what you're running. So it actually saves you money in the long run and makes you more efficient on the cutting side also.
Well, thanks, Roddy. It looks like we have some time for some questions here from this person has been sending out material to be cut, basically outsourcing the material. As a business person, when does that decision come in mind in terms of bringing a Waterjet in and investing in your own table? How do you make that decision versus outsourcing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can actually talk pretty well on that topic because it happens quite often. We are sometimes that interim source of supply for a company that has a good application for Waterjet, or else they wouldn't need our services to begin with. But as their business grows, they start thinking about, should I bring my own machine in-house? And so, if you're looking at purchasing a machine, you have the monthly cost of that payment to your bank. You've got an operator you have to have at your machine. You have to have an abrasive removal process in place, and you have the operating cost itself. So, in talking to other companies who have made this evaluation, is somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 a month range. Kind of makes sense depending on how large of a company you are and how much cutting you're actually going to be doing. But somewhere in that $5,000 to $10,000, if you're outsourcing that amount and you have the space and the desire to bring it in-house, well, then it could start making financial sense for you.
Okay, good. So the next question is there a new business or application that you captured as a result of going to the higher pressure, 90,000 PSI?
Like I was telling you a minute ago, we started cutting rubber for a company that had laminated materials, and not only are we doing that, but now we're doing all their machine work. We're not just a Waterjet shop; we're also a laser cutting facility and a complete machine center, machining operation. In that we have mills and lathes, both small work envelope mills and large work envelope mills. So it's Waterjet has opened up the doors for other processes, value-added processes. Waterjet's a direct cut. So if you're cutting a hole in some 1-inch thick aluminum, you need to countersink or tap holes in that same part. Well, then we're able to add those services and help that customer not have to send it somewhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the next question is, you also have plasma tables, and you have water jets. So you're probably the best person to ask the question in regards to comparing and contrasting. When do you turn to the plasma table versus a water jet, and what are the advantages of both those technologies over the other?
Yeah, and just to clarify, we have no plasma in house, but we do have lasers that compete very well with plasma on a much tighter tolerance basis. And a water jet, as you know, and anybody probably listening to this webinar knows, it can cut almost any material as long as the abrasive that you're using is as hard or harder on the Mohs scale. If someone just has a water jet, they will tell you that that's the best way to cut that particular part. Having lasers and milling machines, there could be other better ways to make a higher quality part at a lower cost. So with water jet and comparing to laser, if you have, like our new laser coming in, a 10,000 watt fiber laser, usually it's the thickness of the material that is the deciding factor, along with a no heat cutting process. So lasers are going to take over from a water jet from a tolerance standpoint, where water jet's going to take over from laser on a thickness standpoint or a no heat standpoint. But in general, they are both non-traditional machining processes. They both have their niches, and that's why we have both of those technologies under one roof.
Okay. The next question is somebody asking about 90,000 PSI. They're asking, is there really that much difference between the 60 and the 90,000 PSI? Other manufacturers have told me that it's negligible and doesn't make a big difference.
Well, yeah, on that question, it's kind of just like I was just saying. If someone has only a water jet in their facility and no laser, they're going to tell you that water jet's the best way to cut that part, when maybe laser is really the better way to go. If somebody only has 60,000 PSI versus 90, they're probably going to tell you 60,000 that part in the best way, the best piece of equipment to put in their facility. If you have 90,000 and you know the advantages of it, the operating cost is the same or less than 60,000 PSI, with 30 to 50% increase in cutting speed, it's a slam dunk that is definitely the better way to go from a water jet standpoint.
So the last question we have here is going back to the lasers. This person wants to know, will lasers eventually replace water jet?
Well, I think they will replace some of the applications on the speed capability and the tolerance issues in areas where a heat effective zone is not an issue. If it is, water jets will always be the tool. But lasers, it's a higher cost of entry, so it all depends on what you can afford, what you can justify, and really what the application is.
Okay, it looks like we've covered most of the questions. Rodie, is there anything else that you want to, before we wrap up?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk to you for a few minutes. It's been a great relationship with. I appreciate the support, and it's good to know you guys, and I'm glad to see the technology growing and flourishing, and I think KMT's been a big part of that, so appreciate it very much.
We thank you for taking the time. We know you're running a business, so we definitely appreciate you taking the time to be on this webinar. So thanks to everybody on the call, on the webinar. We appreciate you registering for the webinar. Thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to the next KMT Waterjet webinar. We'll keep you posted on that. If you have any other questions that we didn't cover today, or for Rodie at Maximum Industries, the phone number, email address, and website are all on the video screen. So with all of that, we're going to call it a wrap, and everybody have a great day.